So good morning, everyone. I also want to express my thanks to all of you for joining us here today in Berlin. Guten Morgen, willkommen in Berlin. Es ist uns eine Ehre, schön das zweite Forum in Berlin und Deutschland zu halten. Vielen Dank für Ihre Gastfreundschaft und die viele Unterstützung bei der Vorbereitung dieser Konferenz. I think Garth just laid out for us quite a stark reality, one that makes clear how the critical need for us to be smarter in how we use law and in how we collaborate and innovate around justice and social change. But sometimes in the face of these seemingly insurmountable challenges, I feel what in German you would call Weltschmerz. Weltschmerz is the mismatch between our image of how the world should be and how it actually is. A more dramatic translation is a mood of weariness and sadness about life arising from the acute awareness of evil and suffering. It is literally world pain. And I feel Weltschmerz every morning when I read the news over my coffee, when I fight it off during the day, when I pass a homeless person, or I'm scrolling through all of the angry, polarized discussions, arguments on Facebook. And I find myself thinking, how can we possibly fix this? And to be honest, I don't know what the answer is. But I think as lawyers, it's our duty to try to figure it out. And law and lawyers cannot fix this alone, but they form a vital part of what the American professor of international peacebuilding, John Paul Lederach, calls the critical yeast of social change. And we often think of change being driven by critical mass, a tipping point when a large enough number of people all believe and get behind the same idea or concept or campaign, and then it spreads and it becomes exponential. According to recent research, roughly 25% of people in a group need to take a stand before large-scale social change occurs. But critical yeast, on the other hand, focuses less on numbers and more on getting small groups of people together at the right time and place, combining the right mixture of experience and chemistry that can create new and unique recipes for collaborative action that can easily multiply and spread. And I think the forum really is a place for that kind of critical yeast. It's an antidote to Weltschmerz. But the forum isn't the only place the PILnet's bringing together unique alliances to use law for change. And I just want to mention a couple this morning because I think the forum is probably one of the most visible things that the PILnet does. But we have programs from our offices in New York to Hong Kong, Beijing, Lebanon, Budapest, Moscow. So I just want to give you a flavor of some of the things that we're doing in those places. So in response to threats to democracy and open society in Hungary, PILnet has built a network to bridge the gap between NGOs and corporate lawyers in order to build resilience in civil society. Expert legal advice in finance, tax, corporate governance, and employment law is suddenly it's the first line of defense for NGOs that are under attack. And this alliance means that NGOs not only get access to the expertise that they need, it's also served to build stronger relationships between the public and private sectors. And you can find out more about the work that we and others are doing to support civil society resilience in the plenary panel discussion that will take place after the opening keynote speeches, and then also in a follow-up workshop that will be taking place on navigating the shifting compliance requirements for civil society. And through PILnet's Law for Change student competition in Hong Kong, we're giving young lawyers the chance to use their ideas, their idealism, and innovation to solve access to justice problems for low-income communities. Under the mentorship of Davis Polk and Vardvel, I've got my German accent on, Vardvel, the winning team outlet recognized the need for early legal advice to be given to subdivided tenants and the elderly in their communities. And they are now using the prize money that they got from that competition to actually implement that project and connect those underprivileged groups with university students to make legal education a social service. And the winning team from that competition are actually here today. And they're going to be speaking about their experience in a workshop later on today that's called Law Students as Changemakers. And there's also a session that's looking at, well, what is the response that law firms and universities need to have to give these young lawyers the tools that they need? That is called the next generation of law firms, I believe. And then, of course, there are these forums, and also the roundtables and the convenings and other events that PILnet organises throughout the course of the year. These types of gatherings are critical for social change. Lawmakers have long understood, perhaps more than others, the power inherent in gatherings. In democracies, the freedom to assemble is one of the foundational rights granted to every individual. And in countries descending into authoritarianism, one of the first things to go is the right to assemble. And why? Because of what can happen when people come together to exchange information, inspire one another, and test out new ways of working together. And so it means a lot for me personally to welcome you all here to Berlin. The last time that it took place here in 2011, I was still a participant. I was still one of you. And I joined PILnet around 6 months later, so in a sense, it's all coming full circle. It's a little bit of a homecoming for me. And since then, I've had the opportunity to witness how pro bono here in Germany has evolved since 2011. And in a world of polarization, anger, and haste, I think there's actually a lot that can be learned from the slow but steady expansion of pro bono services here, in the outpouring of legal support for refugees at home and abroad, and the deliberate and pragmatic route of progress that German lawyers, in particular Pro Bono Deutschland, have taken.